And today we have our guest, our second special guest. This guy, I've been wanting to have this guy on. We've had multiple conversations. Yes, Ruben? Ton of success so far in his life. And obviously when we bring anybody on, guys, we want to bring somebody who has had success. They're doing something different. We see potential in them. And I don't think he's where he wants to be. And this person is, he's not there where he wants to be. But he's got great goals, great visions, and he's done a lot of great things. So sharp man, amazing individual. I love his story. He shared tons of things with me. So today with us, we have our very special guest, Ruben, in the house. What's up, baby?
What's good, fam?
What's up?
What's cracking?
The first thing I told him when he walked in, I said, I love that jacket, bro.
That jacket's hard.
You look fresh.
That jacket's hard.
You look beautiful today.
Where'd you get it?
No, so I was telling Chris when I was coming up, I was like, this is my grandpa's. My grandpa passed away almost 2 years ago.
Did he have it for long?
I don't know, bro. But
Well, he kept it in good condition.
Right?
Yeah, my grandpa,
that looks so good, bro.
Yeah, my grandpa was always someone that took care of his stuff. He was at you'd find him at the freaking mall every weekend.
Oh,
buying
really?
Clothes and all that stuff. Yeah, bro.
How old was he?
When he passed, I think he was a little under 75.
75.
Yeah.
And he was your mom's or dad's?
My dad's dad.
Your dad's dad.
Yeah.
Were you close to him?
Not really, but coming up, me and three of my older cousins that are around my same age, my grandpa and my grandma are the ones that usually took care of us. But obviously coming up, people started going their separate ways. So I kind of got distant from them. I ended up going to school in San Francisco, and so that kind of distanced me a lot from majority of my family.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was a point in time where, this is my grandpa, and from my mom's side, I didn't really have a grandpa because he passed away before my mom was even born.
Oh, shit.
Oh, wow.
So her dad passed away before she was even born?
Yeah.
Wow, that's tough.
Yeah, she was at the hospital too, and this was like a couple of days before she gave birth to my mom.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and he died in a car accident.
No.
Yeah, and so my mom never really had a father figure growing up.
Have you talked to your mom about this?
We've talked about certain things, but it's just like, I feel like there's only so much she can say because she wasn't there. Maybe if I have a conversation with my grandma, her mom, maybe it's gonna be different.
Damn.
But now she's been married for several years. They had a kid together, my uncle, my mom's brother, and he's married and all that stuff. But they're the ones that baptized me when I was a little baby.
Yeah.
But they live in Chicago.
Chi-town.
And my mom
Shout
actually.
out to Chi-town.
Yeah, Chi-town. I was actually born there, so.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah, my sister and I were both born there.
So that's where most of your family's from?
Well, both my parents were from Michoacan, Mexico.
What?
Michi.
No idea.
Shout out to
What?
Michigan.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, so obviously, I have conversations with your mom.
Yeah.
I was at the office.
How crazy. I did not know this, bro.
Yeah.
I thought you were just like Will, whitewash as well. I was like,
Yo, thanks, bro.
Will has no roots, bro. Will is
Yo, I do have roots, bro. It's my own roots, bro.
My own roots. No, yeah, so they're both from Michoacan. Majority of my family that's here, that I'm closest to, is my dad's side. My dad's side of the family. But my mom's side, she doesn't really have much. All we have is like one of her uncles, which is actually her uncle, because it was her dad's brother that lives in Corona. So that's the closest we have. Other than that, we don't have anybody from her side.
Yeah.
We got my grandma, and then obviously her husband, which is my padrino.
Like here in the States or here in California?
Like here in Cali, that's all we have, like my uncle in Corona. But here in the States, it's them, and then we got obviously my grandma in Chicago, and then we got a really close aunt that's kind of like prima hermana to her.
Right.
That's in Texas and Houston. So it's kind of scattered all over the place, but majority of my family or majority of my upbringing was along the sides of my dad's side of the family.
How long did you live in Chicago for?
A couple of years, bro. I honestly don't remember anything. Like I can tell you that I was born there, but I can't say I'm from there because
Got it. Yeah.
I don't
'cause you
remember anything.
So you're pretty much,
I'm on
you're like from California, pretty much.
Yeah, I was raised in Santa Ana,
Okay. So now.
OC.
And then you lived in San Francisco, you said?
I went to school in San Francisco, lived there for about 3 years.
That's where you did high school?
That's where I went to college.
Oh,
How'd you
got
like
it.
it?
So got it. So you did high school here in Santa Ana, and then you went out to San Francisco for college. Got it.
Yeah.
How was that?
I loved it, man. I loved it. Kind of lived the best of both worlds, to be honest. So I went inside of it, going into a relationship from a girl that lived here in HB. And we both ended up going to the same school, and then ended up realizing that she's over here playing games, cheating on me.
Damn. That whole
HP
experience
girls,
was
bro.
a moment, going over there with the relationship and all
Yeah,
that.
left, end of first semester, ended up find out she's over cheating on me, even though I knew it, because I questioned her about it. She's like, don't worry, it's just a guy. It's just a friend. So yeah, anyway, so lived that, and then from there, I just healed from it. I ended up just meeting more people. Ended up joining a frat. It was a good time.
Well, those things are wild, aren't they? Like
They are, but I feel like in SF it was a little differently because SF has we don't have any like Greek row or anything because SF has a law that says that if more than 8 people live in a house, it's considered a brothel.
What, really?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Weird. A brothel, like
a prostitution house.
What?
Prostitution house.
Yeah, it's kind of stupid, huh?
It is, yeah.
So we couldn't get like our own fraternity house or any of that stuff. So we would get together in groups, 6 to 7 people. We'd just rent out houses and throw parties. But they'd get raided right away within 1-2 hours. So people in SF really anal. So it's kind of whack. So it was just more about, well, I'm kind of over this.
So who were you in high school? Were you a party person yet, or you had your breakthrough? And just tell us the story. Were you in high school? Who were you?
Honestly, bro, I was very disciplined because I grew up playing sports my whole life. I played soccer since I was 4 years old, and I played club pretty much my whole life. Football, played football in high school, track as well. But I was very disciplined because I had some hiccups in the past in middle school where I got suspended and all that stuff, and my dad put a whooping on me and kind of had to learn that, the difference between good and bad. And because of that, it shaped me into the person that I am today. And going into high school, I was very mature compared to majority of my freshman class.
Got it.
But yeah, I mean, I was honestly freshman, sophomore year, I wasn't really anybody, to be honest. I was just somebody that just went to school, just go to school and looking forward to playing sports. That's it.
Well, would you say that you were like kind of finding your way in those 2 years?
I would say so, yeah, because I was like, dude, I'm just here I don't really know anybody. And I was just like, I'm just here to play sports and see how good I can get at soccer and see if I can get a good scholarship. I started progressing, started getting more comfortable, started getting more into sports, more success on the sports side and all that stuff. People started getting to know me, and I just kind of started coming out, becoming more of myself,
Like, would you say that you were like popular, or?
I say not till senior year. When I got into student government, that's when I started becoming, like, people knew me. Like, oh, that's Ruben.
For student government, like, what is that? Like, is it class or?
It's not necessarily a class. It's basically the student government. Like, you and a couple other folks, like a group of like 20, 30 folks. There's like your president, VP, and all that stuff.
Is that like leadership?
It's like leadership.
Like for the school, right?
For the school.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. Like we literally, like especially during football season, like we go all out. Like we're the ones that put the posters up. And
Got it. You create the yearbook and all that. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing during football season. Like we were freaking busy. Like we had to show up sometimes 5, 6 a.m. and we didn't leave till like 12 that night. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
Like it was bad because of football season, especially during rivalry week. Like it was insane.
Because that takes a lot of work. That's like that takes a lot of maturity too to like do to that type of work.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. There's a lot of folks that were committed there in terms of what we were doing. And I knew what I was signing up for. Which is why I didn't care. And it was my senior year. I was like, dude, I'm going all out. I don't care. And I'm not one to regret anything. I think everything happens for a reason. So I was like, dude, I'm just going to take advantage of it. It's my senior year. Screw it. Whatever happens, happens. And, well, at the end of the day, my end goal is not going to change based off this year. Yeah. So I said, I'm just going to do whatever I'm going to do.
I have one question. Like, do you have siblings, people you grew up with as well? Are you the oldest in the family? Where do you fall?
So I'm the oldest in the family. I have a 19-year-old sister, but we grew up very distant, though.
Oh, so there's only 2 of you.
It's only 2 of us.
How old are you?
23.
23.
So it's like a 4-year gap.
It's 4-year gap, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, 4-year gap. But like I said, obviously she's a female, I'm a male. We grew up very distant. I left to college. So during that time frame, she grew up to become very independent.
Okay, so technically in high school you were by yourself. It's like it wasn't you had your sister there with you, it was you yourself. Was there anything like I think we all go through the stage of like finding your own identity, and I think high school is almost like the first step. Where you start joining sports or groups of people, and you also kind of start knowing so much about who you are and the people you want to be around. What are some things that you maybe struggle with? Like, were you bullied? Were you made fun of? Like, what are some things you struggle with in high school?
Oh, bro, I was bullied in middle school.
Really?
I was bullied big time, all the time. I was bullied so many times in middle school, elementary school. I was always getting bullied nonstop. Just for no damn reason. I don't know. Kids are freaking weird. Like people are just bullies. People are just rude, disrespectful. I feel like a lot of it has to do with how you're raised and all that stuff. Because I was never raised to bully people. Like what's the point of doing that? I was never raised to do that.
So what are some ways that you got bullied? Like, was it playing sports and
like for example, in elementary school, there's a kid that just like we're sending in line. He just starts kicking me out of nowhere, and I'm like, "What the heck you doing, bro?" And I start kicking him back, and teacher comes, we both go back. Like I remember these stories from elementary school. I remember all of these. In middle school, some random guy that I guess he just didn't like me. He was always trying to like come up, square up with me and all this. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Like, I have no beef with you. Like, leave me alone. Yeah. You know? And at that time, I'm like an innocent, scrawny guy. I'm just playing soccer, so I'm freaking skinny and not really like hitting weights or any of that stuff. So I'm like, and I don't know how to fight. I'm like, dude, like I'm freaking 10 years old. Like, what do you want? You know? So just for random reasons, I don't really understand why, but there was times where I actually got into fights, and it was just like, oh shit, like I don't really know what to do, but I'm going to defend myself. Yeah,
I feel like there's different ways how you react to bully, and a lot of it shapes who you are today. Like, sure. I don't know if in your case, well, maybe you want to share it, but I was also bullied, and I remember, not necessarily bullied, but there was like one person, when I first came to the U.S., I came here when I was 14, and the first thing that my dad told me was, just don't get into fights. So this is not the same thing as Old Town where you know everybody, like people here are dirty, you don't know anyone. So it was a lot of fear. So there was a guy who would like punch me, like I would go down the hall, and I would just not do anything, bro, and it was so uncomfortable throughout middle school, but I feel like things like that just shaped me. Like eventually when it happened, bro, I will die to see this person again. It was so helpful. I think that and like pushed me to join groups to. You know, I joined football when I was in ninth grade, so I wanted to be better. I didn't want to be bullied, bro. I want to be a bigger presence. My question to you is, did this happening, did it shape you to do more things?
Yeah, for sure. Because at one of the times when I was in middle school, I had told my dad about it. He's like, if it happens again, tell me, and I'm gonna go to the school. And I was like, okay, like the fact that my dad's kind of leading by example, saying like, this isn't right. I think that kind of says something. Yeah. And I was grateful for that, because that's when I was like, okay, I kind of got to get my shit together, and I can't let this happen anymore. And so till this day, I mean, I remember it, and one day, I don't have kids right now, but hopefully one day I get the opportunity to become a dad. I'm going to tell them the values and principles about bullying. And kind of like what Pat says, like, we don't bully and we don't get bullied. And that's something that's we're going to stick by in our Godinez last name. Because I saw what it did to me. But it plays a huge role in, I feel like anybody that goes through that type of stuff, it plays a huge role in terms of how you process it and what you decide to do with it. Yeah. And it did shape me, it helped me become the difference between, maybe they have stuff going on personally, but you shouldn't be able to use humans or other human beings as punching bags, because they haven't.
So would you say, I mean, bullying is sort of a good thing almost? Good thing, but it's not something you process. Like, my son came up to me, bro. He went to school for this one thing with his auntie. She takes care of kids. So she's like, oh, these kids were calling me a weenie. A wiener. She's a wiener or something like that. And he's crying, bro. And that broke my heart. It's like, it's a bunch of kids calling my son a wiener. They don't know him. He's like, but he's like swinging back. Like, he's like, no, you're a wiener. So he's going back and forth with him. He's defending himself.
That's what he's supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do.
And I just processed that with him. They said, Papa, tell me about them. And he's like, yeah, Papa, they're calling me a wiener. And he wears glasses, bro. So it's one of the biggest things is interfere. And it's like,
that shit is fucking, that's fucked up, bro.
It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. But inside of me, I think, dude, you need this, man. Like, you're going to have to face life. And all I do is process that with him. Yeah. What are you going to do when that happens? So,
how about character for sure?
Yeah. Were you bullied?
I low-key, I wasn't ever bullied. I feel like a lot of people always wanted to like teach you like kick it with me. That's the vibe.
You were the bully, huh, bro?
Not really.
I think you got told me.
I wasn't a bully, bro. But I did. Every time I did have some instances, like I did get into a couple fights, but for the most part, every time some shit happened or someone was to like fuck with me, like I would always talk shit. But other than that, not really. Yeah. But I was also more like antisocial and a loner too. I had like 2 or 3 friends and I just kept to myself.
Do you think that's how do you learn not to like defend yourself. And I think it applies to life as well, right? Like swinging back. Life hits you, something happens, say fight back. It's the idea of fight back. There's many ways that life can bully you. What do you think you learned that? From your experience, what do you think you learned to fight back?
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, my first couple fights, dude, I was scared, bro. I was scared shitless, dude. But then, dude, after a while, like, dude, you just, I don't know, like, that urge in you, that pride, that stop fucking with me, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if you guys ever felt that, but I felt that, like, just always wanted to, like, prove myself. Because I never grew up with a father, so to me, I always had, like, a chip on my shoulder. So I was always, like, if anybody ever needed anything, dude, I was always there. So I also have a lot of people that had my back, and anybody that met me, like, really didn't try to fuck with me because they always knew that I was like chill, like I was a good dude. Mm-hmm. So I never really experienced any of that shit, to be honest.
What about you, bro?
Honestly, I think it's a mindset.
Okay.
I think it's a mindset that you develop with life, and it's up to you how you react to it. Because this could be bullying in your upbringing. This could be breakups. This could be financial hardships. This could be business hardships. Whatever it is, I think it applies to everything. It's all dependent on you in terms of if you want to bounce back or not. And kind of like Will said, there's a point to prove, and I feel like everybody has that point to prove. I just feel like for some folks it's bigger than others, and for some folks they let that chip on the shoulder drive them. For others, it's different things that drive them.
Yeah. Kind of like when, I don't know if you guys heard the story of Michael Jordan. He used to play these scenarios in his head.
Yeah.
Like he would look for things where people would either disrespect him or say something that, and he would just play those scenarios in his head.
Like he would let that drive them.
Yeah. Psychotic shit.
Yeah. So, bro, for you, like, did you grow up closer to your mom or dad? What's your story there?
No, well, it was mainly my mom. Because my dad was always working. My dad was working 2 jobs a day from 4 a.m. He would go in at like 4 or 5 a.m. Would get off at like 3, 4 p.m. Come home, eat dinner, and then he'd get ready, and then he'd dip to go do his other job from like 5 to like 10 p.m. And he did that.
He did that your whole life?
He did that 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week for like 20 years.
Wow. Jesus, dude.
Yeah.
That's how it worked.
And so my mom was the one just pretty much taking care of us at the time.
Was she had a stay-at-home mom?
She was for a while. She was for a while, but then she eventually started working. And so obviously my dad was just there, you know, when he would come and he'd see us and all that stuff. I remember there was times where, like, when I was a kid, like, he'd get home and I'd be in my soccer uniform ready to play with him.
And he's like, I'm tired, son. Like,
but he would still play with me, though. He wouldn't tell me that. He wouldn't tell me that, though. So we would play. Like, I remember times when he first got me my first bike and we were riding it, and he's already getting home from work and all this stuff.
But he will go and do it with you.
Yeah, he would go do it with me. And so that was pretty much the only time I had with him during that time. But for the most part, it was always my mom, my sister, and myself. My mom was the one racing us, so I was obviously going to get closer to her.
Right.
But throughout life, you start to obviously see things from a different perspective, and you start to get more appreciation towards not only your mom, but obviously for me, it's my dad as well, because I was like, hey, I understand you weren't here, but it was for a reason, and that's to be able to provide for us.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, I mean, you and I had this conversation not too long ago, and I talked to him, and I just told him, I was like, hey, you know, I appreciate everything you've done for me. Like, I just hope you know that I don't have any resentment towards you for not being around when we were kids or any of that stuff. Like, I know you were gone, you had to do what you got to do to be able to provide for us so that we can obviously have a good lifestyle, eat, all that stuff. And he's like, no, I understand. He's like, it was the same thing with my mom and dad. You know, my grandpa at the time was here here in the U.S. by himself. Meanwhile, my grandma and the rest of my, you know, aunts and uncles and my dad were back in Mexico still. So it was obvious that they were going to get closer to my grandma, and till this day they are. And it's because for the same reason. So it's just a generational thing. Like I said, you and I had this conversation before.
Yeah, because we had the conversation about forgiveness. Actually, I talked to Ruben about it, and you took that step, right, with your dad. But so you're saying that your dad always worked, but whenever there was time available, he dedicated time for you.
Yeah.
So did you grow up having any resentment towards him at all? Like, was there anything? So, how was his relationship with your mom?
Yeah, that was a whole different scenario. I think the only resentment I did hold towards him was the way he went about things with my mom when they had arguments. Because I saw it all. Till this day, I remember everything.
Like what?
Arguments. Like, bro, I'm not talking about like arguments like, hey, let's sit down, let's talk about and process. I'm talking about like, pendeja, o sea, like
Really? Disrespect, like
the way he would treat her.
Well, yeah.
Was there like physical abuse too?
I never saw anything. So unless it was something that was behind closed doors that I never saw. But it was just more emotional and verbal abuse. And I saw it. And till this day, I remember it. I'm never going to forget that. I'm never going to forget that. It was part of it's part of my upbringing, you know? And how are you going to forget things like that? It's just, you can't. Like, that's your mom. And so there was a time where, I mean, like I said, when I was like 4 years old, 5 years old, we used to live with my grandma together, where constant arguments, constant fights, and I was in between all of it. And I remember every time they would get into it, I would go to my grandma and be like, hey, my parents are fighting. And my grandma would go, no peleen, no peleen.
So it was a whole scene.
Yeah, a whole scene. And I remember all of it, like I said. And so the relationship was really rocky at the beginning when we were there together, which is why my sister and I were born in Chicago, because during that time, my parents weren't together, which is why she left to Chicago with my grandma.
Got it.
So that's why I was born over there. And then they got back together and we came back to Cali, all that stuff.
So he's been here his whole life.
Yeah, my dad's been here his whole life.
But was he born here?
No, he's from Mexico.
Oh, he's from Mexico.
Michoacan, yeah. Yeah, so like I said, I saw it all. Today, I don't have any more resentment towards him. I kind of got over it, to be honest. Kind of forgave him on that part. But I had to have multiple conversations with him, though, as I got older, like in high school and college. I was like, hey, I don't like the way you talk to my mom. I was like, I understand she's your wife. I was like, but I don't like the way you do that. Like, that's not okay. And he changed. He changed a lot, to be honest.
From that conversation.
Do you remember the first time you like told him that?
I remember all the conversations I had with that, because I've had multiple different conversations with him. Because my mom having a conversation with him is one thing, but when you have a kid, I think your
boy, especially.
I think that's a different. Like, I think that's what's kind of like, hey, bro, like, you gotta get your shit together.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with him, and multiple different conversations about multiple different things, and I've seen him change and evolve.
I think it's a gift to be the older male. To be a male in the family and to be the oldest, there's a gift there. Do you think we at one point have a responsibility to rebuild our, like if our dads are broken? Do you think we have a responsibility to get back and build? Because this has powered. What you say to them, like I see my little one, he says something like you'd be surprised the things he says to me. Right? He's so smart. But do you think we have that responsibility to get back as an older son?
For sure, 100%. If not, then what are you doing?
Exactly.
I mean, for us to have, obviously, you said you came from Mexico, right? And then you were born here, but your parents.
My mom was born here too.
Okay, so you're like second generation.
He's like second generation,
Gotcha,
yeah.
Okay.
White boy.
But regardless, somebody at some point had to make the risk to come to the
my
country.
grandma came here while she was actually pregnant with my mom.
There you go. So somebody at some point had to kind of take the risk to come to the United States to pursue a better life for future generations.
Yeah.
You did that. My dad did that. My grandpa did that, all that stuff. So with that being said, they came here for a reason, right? And I feel like we can go on and on this part, but when somebody just comes to give you a better lifestyle and then you just sit there with the opportunity at your hands and just not do nothing with it, I think it's a total disrespect.
Yeah.
I think it's like slapping in the face.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Why? Because you're in America, which is the greatest country in the world.
I agree.
With the opportunities to do whatever you choose to, and to go do whatever you want to do with your family's last name. And I see as a man in a family, I think it is your obligation and duty to go take your last name that was given to you to the most highest that you can do. Because if you don't, then it's just a total disrespect to your family. Like, bro, you think life is hard. Life isn't hard. What's hard is going through the mountains when you're crossing the freaking border, when it's raining, it's cold, you got nothing to eat. Like, that's hard.
That's hard, yeah. That's tough.
Hard. So I'm like, when you're in a financial hardship, you're going through a breakup and all that stuff, I understand your situation. It's valid what you're feeling. I'm not downplaying that. But there's so many resources nowadays that you can go about where you can go heal, get help and all this stuff, make more money, all this stuff, so that you can get out of your current position.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a problem too with today's society nowadays, especially with the newest generation. Like, they get hurt and all of a sudden
They're
make
weak.
a big ass deal. Yeah, they're fucking weak.
I think perspective plays a big part.
Yeah.
Also realizing your situation.
Yeah.
You're right. Like, a heartbreak isn't that bad, but at that moment, my first heartbreak was like, it was such a big deal. But then when I look back, I'm like, bro, I wasn't really in love. Like, that was all like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just perspective.
Have you guys ever read the book Secrets of the Millionaire Mind?
Yeah.
It talks about a blueprint, like your financial blueprint, right? And to find out what you want to have in the future, you first have to be well aware of your blueprint. How are you? So that's the first step. Identify your thoughts about money, identify what you think, the fears, making it, what's your perspective. So first you got to change the blueprint of your money blueprint. I believe that even as a man, to build a family, to be all you can be as a man, to be a provider, to be shelter for other people, you also have to identify your man print. Right. That's the reason why I believe this conversation is so important. Because yes, your last name is important. Yes, you're doing something for your family is important. Your dad, your mom, do something bigger for them. But if you're caught up on the idea of the things that your dad did to you or the resentment that you have, you can't heal. Mm-hmm. Or you will be able to make money, but it will lead to painful things. So that's why I'm so interested on your end to know, okay, is there something that you still resent towards your dad? I also wanted to ask you, is there something that you wish your dad did better growing up?
It's a great question. Honestly, I don't have any resentment towards my dad. I love my dad's death. There was a point in time where I had actually found out that he had another kid.
Oh, no.
Outside?
Yeah.
It's, whoa.
But so the
This
way
is outside of you. Is he older than you, younger?
No, so she's actually my sister's age. So the year my sister was born, she was born too. So my sister is like 4 or 5 months younger than her.
Wow.
And I found out when I was 17 years old, a senior in high school.
Does your mom know?
She knew about it the whole time. As a matter of fact, everybody in my family knew from my dad's side except for my sister and I.
What?
Yeah, and so the way I found out about it was through a FAFSA email. When I was applying for financial aid to go to college, I get an email one day when I was staying late after we were doing some stuff for student government.
Yeah.
And it basically says like, hey, on your application, it says that none of your parents pay child support, but we got some third-party feedback saying that one of your parents is indeed paying child support. So we need that accurate amount.
What the fuck?
And I was like, bro, I think they sent this to the wrong person. I was like, there's no way on earth. And
so he's been paying child support.
Yeah.
At least he paid his dues.
Damn.
You know?
Yeah, so he's been paying child support, and I was like, bro, there's no way. Like, this is wrong.
Wow.
Like, I don't understand. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
So she was 17. You were probably like 20.
Yeah. So again, there's a 4-year difference between my sister and I, and they were born in the same year.
Wow, crazy.
So, so I go home, and I told my mom first because obviously I'm closer to my mom. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, hey, I got this email, and I don't know, it's super weird, but I just want to show you guys. And she's like, oh, you got to talk to your dad. And I'm like,
When she said that, like, what'd you think? Like,
well, my heart dropped. I was like, bro, there's no way. Like, because I remember my mom's mom, my grandma, every time she comes to visit, when I was a kid, she would always say something along the lines like, when you get older, you're going to find something out. She would always sprinkle it on me like
So you connected the dots afterwards.
I connected the dots, yeah. And I called her, and she's like, well, remember when I told you? I was like, yeah. She's like, what was that? She's like, but she was like, there's going to be something you're going to find out.
This is your mom's
yeah, but
mom.
why did they keep it from you?
Well, because it was my dad's responsibility to tell my sister and I, but I don't know what my dad was waiting for. When I talked to him after, so I go to the room, because he was like ironing his clothes. I go to the room, and he goes, I show him the emails. Hey, I was at school, I got this email. And he's like, let me see. And so he just looks at it. He's like, just forward it to me. And he gives me my phone back. And I'm standing there. I'm like, you're not going to say anything? He's like, what do you want me to say? And I got mad, and I leave the room. I go outside the house, and I'm like mad, frustrated, like crying. And I'm like, what the heck's going on right now? Like, I think I deserve a right to understand, or to at least like know what's going on, you know? And next thing you know, I call my uncle, his brother, which is the oldest one of all 5 of them. And I was like, hey, can you meet me at the park that's by my house? And he's like, yeah. So I meet him at the park, and I get in his car, and I tell him, like, listen, I found this out. He's like, well, listen, we all knew about this, but it was your dad's responsibility to let you guys know. We just couldn't say anything because it's none of our business. And then he takes me back to the house, and then my dad was at the gym when we got back to the house. So my dad gets home.
Your dad works out?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he got a heart attack when I was in high school, so he kind of had to go through the whole process, and now he's pretty active now. Mm-hmm. But I get home with my uncle. My dad's not there; he's at the gym. And then my uncle gets home, or my dad gets home, and my dad's like with this big face, like he's mad because he sees my uncle there, and in the back of his head, he knows what's going on. And he's like, "What are you doing here?" He tells my uncle. He's like, "Well, you got to tell him, like, you already found out, bro. Like, what are you doing?" And then my dad goes, "A ti qué te importa?" He tells me, he's like, "A ti qué te importa?" And I tell my dad, I'm like, "Dude, you're only getting like that because you know you fucked up." I told my dad that. He got so mad. He gets up, he comes to my face, like if he was going to do something. But at that point, I'm like 17, 18 years old, so I'm like, bro, I don't think you're going to do anything because best believe I'm going to swing back.
Yeah.
And so eventually and my mom was right there, and she's like, "You see how you're getting? Like, this is your problem. This is why you're getting, like, they have nothing to do with it, but it's, you know, you screwed up, like, it's your mistake, and now you got to pay the consequences. And part of it is telling your kids about what happened." And so he apologized for how he reacted. And then he told my sister and I, like, "Hey, you know what? I messed up, made a mistake, had this girl, I don't talk to her, blah, blah, and that." So he kept it very brief. The one that told us more details was my mom. And I guess eventually my mom was like, "Well, you either go with her or you come with us, you build a life with us, but you don't talk to her at all." And that's what he chose. And so...
So how did that make you feel towards your dad? Like, did you feel betrayed, like, not knowing? Because I'm pretty sure if I just put myself in your dad's shoes, it wasn't something easy to say. It's like, well, I have... And I think you weren't also... there is like an age where... Because my dad has kids out of his marriage. Never talked about it. Like, he has no fucking interest on even telling me about it.
Jesus Christ.
Dude, but it's like, okay, well.
No, my dad too, he has like 5 kids, bro.
And it's not like I want an explanation. Like, at this point, I'm like, oh, well, you fucked up. That's like between you and my mom. But I'm curious to know how that made you feel towards him. Did you have any resentment, or did you feel
at that point, I was really angry. But I wasn't angry at the fact that he didn't want to tell us. I was angry at the fact that he didn't want to tell us. Not because of his mistake. I was more angry at the fact that he didn't want to tell us. Because I told him, I'm like, "Dude, I'm about to turn 18 years old. Like, how much more are you waiting to tell me?" He's like, "Well, I was waiting for you to get older." I was like, "For what?" I'm already 18 years old. Like, how much older do you want me to be?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think that was? Like, you think he was like scared, ashamed?
I think he was more scared and
like to be disappointed by you, or like?
I think more judgment too.
Yeah, but it's not easy. It's not something easy to process. You know, so how do I tell my kids to have another kid outside of it? It's like, well, I got to pay the bills either way. You know, I fucked up. That's between me and my wife. You know. Yeah.
Honestly, I was more afraid. I was more angry at the fact that he didn't want to tell us. But then he apologized. I got over it. I was like, that's fine. But I think the one that got more upset and that actually has a more that played a bigger toll on it was my sister. Because it's another girl.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think
bro, I know. I'm like, dude, you guys could have grown up together. At least your other sister and your sister.
I know.
They could have grown up.
You know what I got mad about when I found out? Well, I got mad at the fact that he didn't have boys.
They didn't have
fucking
boys?
girls, dude.
Bro.
2 girls outside of his marriage. What the fuck is wrong with him?
Yeah. That's crazy.
I'm joking, but I wish there were boys, you know? I honestly do wish. It's like, dude, I want to be around them.
Yeah, bro, my mom was always honest, dude. We always knew. We were like, oh, they're probably our age or some shit. Like, but we didn't give a fuck, bro. I was just like,
do you have brothers outside? Do you know?
Yeah, I have 2 older brothers.
Bro, let's talk
One's
to the
like
kids,
30, one's like 25. And
let's save those, man.
Yeah, I have to, bro. I'm actually trying to like meet them.
Dude, build those kids.
Yeah, I'm trying to. One of them looks like my dad, bro. He's ugly as fuck.
I want to see your dad. I want to see your dad.
Ugly. I'll show you a picture when I get one.
Hey, Ruben. Let's talk a little bit about money and like learning the skills of providing. So you grew up closer to your mom, not your dad. Did you ever see your dad work? I'm curious to know your blueprint on providing. Do you think that's a skill that is learned through your dad, mom, or how do you learn the skill providing, this like idea of like I gotta make sure I'm hunting? Who do you learn that from?
Well, I learned it from both, but personally I believe that there's resources out there to the point where you don't, if I'm gonna get canceled for saying this,
Bro, do it, man.
no, so I feel like there's resources out there that can teach you how to be resourceful without having a mom and a dad. Obviously it's gonna be very different, that as opposed to you actually having a mom and dad. But I think there's many resources out there for you to model somebody, or
like a mentor, or like
mentor. Yeah,
there's a lot of videos online.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. But obviously, it will make it somewhat of a difference by not having your actual mom and dad there. Obviously, I understand that. But for me personally, I learned it from both. And if you're somebody that grew up with just a mom or just a dad, then I feel like you can still learn it from them. I don't necessarily believe that you need to have a father figure in your life. But if you do, I think it will play a difference. But I still believe that you can still learn a lot of value, a lot of ways that you can provide for yourself without having to have a father figure.
Yeah.
So for me, it was both, because one, I realized that my dad was out there working, providing for the family and all that stuff. But then at home, my mom was also doing what she can to provide for us, cooking, taking care of the house, driving us where we got to go to school, all that stuff. And so I saw it as both parts were very critical.
Yeah. I think mentors are father figures. I think people that are in your life, like it could be somebody that is just, you model and you see them, how they provide for their family. They're all father figures at the end of it. That's the core of it. Somebody told me over MD Kickoff, they said, Chris, you need somebody that kicks your ass, bro. You need somebody who isn't afraid of you in your life. And this goes to the providing part.
Yeah.
Because I struggle a lot. Like the first years in business, I couldn't figure this thing out. And that's because I was all over the place. I didn't have anybody in my life that said, dude, like at one point you need people to tell you the truth, and the truth hurts.
Yeah.
Because you will have a lot of people that will tell you what you want to hear just to keep you around. Just for them to, whatever the case might be, for their best interest, they'll tell you, do everything that you want to hear. In life, we need men that tells us what we need to hear.
Yeah.
And that's very different. So was there a person in your life like that growing up, or no? Be transparent with me. It doesn't exist yet, or it was.
No, I just want to give a shout out to my best friend JC. He said the truth will set you free.
JC, shout out to JC.
Shout out to JC.
But anyways, honestly, bro, in terms of truth, my dad sometimes gave it to me, but to have somebody that I can go to and say, hey, this is the truth. Like, I don't care about your feelings. This is the truth. Get your shit together. Get your act together. I didn't really have somebody. I kind of learned that throughout life. With more than anything, I think I got it from like coaching. When I was in football and soccer, my coaches were always very
coaches don't give a fuck.
Yeah, they're like, "This, what the fuck you doing?" Yelling at me and shit. And I was like, "Okay, got it.
Yeah,
I understand." But my dad he'd always give me phenomenal advice about what you can do, can't do, how to process life and all that stuff, and more along the lines of like, think before you do, think before you say, more than anything, multiple different times. I think that's the biggest thing that I got from my dad's advice.
Do you think it's hard to find a mentor? Like find a father figure mentor that tells you the truth?
With today's resources, I don't believe so. I think people lack resourcefulness. There's resources out there, but people lack resourcefulness. People are fucking lazy.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if you want it, you're gonna go do it. Like, bro, if a girl is standing right in front of you and saying, hey, like, I'm all single, I'm all yours, I want you, and you're standing right there and knowing that you have the ability to go get her because it's like a straight path, like, what's going to hold you back? Like, you have the resources to go get her, and she's telling you, I'm open. Why wouldn't you go get her? Well, that's your personal issue.
Yeah.
You're lazy.
Yeah.
Or you don't want it. So, just like anything, people make time for things they want. You know, if you hit up a girl, and she says, "Hey," if you tell her, "Hey, let's go on a date," and she tells you, she hits you with all these excuses of, "Hey, I gotta go to the gym. I'll see," blah blah blah, and that bullshit. She doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
Just lay it to me straight. You want to go or you don't. You either want it or you don't. As simple as that. So in terms of that, there's so many resources out there today. Like people, there's no lack of resources. There's lack of resourcefulness. That's what Tony Robbins said. And so it's just like, you got to go get what you want to get. Nothing is going to be handed to you. And I think that's what we learned throughout the past couple of years here with obviously the pandemic. And
The pandemic.
and everything that's been going on, you know, the government's already giving stimulus checks to people. That's why people don't want to go back to work because they're fucking lazy because they're trying to rely on the government. That's all it did. And so that's why I'm like, bro, like that's not how this country works. Those are not the foundation. That's not the values and principles that this country was built on.
Yeah.